Hello, this is Andrea from Pesado. We have today in our studio the Breville Oracle coffee machine. We bought this machine here to make ourselves a couple of coffees, and what we're going to do today, we're going to make one coffee with a stock standard basket and shower screen, and then we're going to make another coffee with our high diffusion shower screen and the high extraction basket. We have selected the high extraction basket to be carrying the same amount of coffee as the stock standard basket of the Breville coffee machine. So they're pretty much the same size. However, as you know, our high extraction basket has got a lot more holes and a lot more surface area. So what I'm gonna do with the coffee machine, this is a coffee machine that self-does and self-temps. So I'm gonna use the function. However, I'm gonna adjust the dose manually to make sure we're getting the same amount of ground coffee in the basket before we do the extraction. And then I'm also gonna stop manually the coffee to make sure we're getting the same amount of liquid coffee out in the cup, okay? The coffee we're gonna use today is a single origin from Espresso Tenango. This is a single origin from Ethiopia, which I thought would be very suited for the high extraction basket, you know what I mean? The extraction basket works well with coffees that need help with the, to extract a little bit more. Oops, I put some on the floor there. So yeah, filling up my hopper. Thanks again, Espresso Tenango, for the lovely coffee. So what we're gonna do first, we're gonna go ahead, grind the coffee. So I select espresso, and then I'm just gonna go ahead with the grinder. The grinder is set on 15. I was playing around with the coffee machine for a while, and I've already set the grind. So we're gonna get a good extraction, and then I already played around with the high extraction basket, and I will make a grinder adjustment once we switch to the high extraction basket. What I'm gonna do here is when I remove the basket, so the machine is already pre-dosed and it has pre-temped. However, we're going to remove the coffee from the basket, and we're gonna make sure that we're dosing the exact amount that we wanted. So we were after 19 grams of coffee. So we got 19.7 in there. So I'm gonna use my little spoon just to make that exactly 19 grams, 19.1. So I've got my 19 grams of coffee in there. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna dose them into my basket. So obviously, because the coffee was pre-temped, we're gonna have a lot of clumps in there and a lot of not evenly prepared packs. So I'm gonna use my WDT tool to even that out, make sure that it's flat and it's even. And then I'm going to use my impact gravity distributor. This will ensure that we remove any possible air pockets that are inside the pack, okay? So it's just, the impact gravity distributor is also kind of semi-pushing down your coffees, but most of all, it applies some vibration to the pack. And then I've got my preset depth adjuster that I'm gonna use. It's preset for both coffees, so it's gonna temp exactly the same depth. I've got a well-packed pack in there. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna load it into the coffee machine. I'm gonna use the black cap, put it in there, tear it off. What we're trying to achieve is we wanna get the double. So we put 19 grams of dry coffee, we want to get 38 grams of liquid coffee. We've got a good looking extraction there. There was a good delay on the extraction. Center stream should be a good sign. Aiming to get 38 grams in about 28, 29, 30 seconds, something like that. So we're getting pretty close to that. There you go. Perfect. So I got 38.7 grams of coffee in about 28 seconds. So I'm pretty happy with this extraction. I'm gonna leave it right there. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go obviously empty the basket first and popping this one out. We're gonna put in the high extraction basket. Now the high extraction basket usually is a lot stiffer to go inside the portafilter. That's because it's wider. So the way you should do it, you just place it like that on your portafilter and give it a firm slap. It will go in. Sometimes if the handle is very new and the spring is very new, it takes a little firm push, but it is always gonna go in. I'm gonna leave it in there for the time being just to warm up, okay? But at the same time, I wanna talk about the high diffusion shower screen. So the way we made this, we got the diffuser, which is a thick piece of stainless steel, and the shower screen, which is another plate of stainless steel. They go together and the holes are matched perfectly to fall within the grooves of the shower, okay, so that we get an even water flow. The way you change the shower screen is you remove the current shower screen that you've got in there. Now, when we look at the stock standard that comes with the Breville, you have to always be careful when you do this, because if the machine is hot, you can burn yourself. So I highly recommend to do this on a cold machine. But yeah, the way you do this, you just place it back in the middle, and then you just, with your Allen key, line up the screw. And you make sure it's firmly tight. Now we're going to lock them both in and run some water just to make sure they warm up nicely, okay? Now in the meantime, we're just going to see, this is how the stock standard comes with your Breville coffee machine. So you've got a shower screen, which is a rather thin shower screen, and then you got the diffuser, which is made out of plastic. So yeah, I believe our solution is a little bit more efficient. Also in terms of like temperature stability, yeah, having stainless steel, that will make your brew a lot more stable in terms of temperature. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to adjust the grind. Why am I adjusting the grind? Because we're using the high extraction basket, this will make the coffee run a lot faster because it's got more holes, so therefore more extraction. So we need to find that up. I've pre-played with the machine, so I know exactly where to set the grinder, but we got to bring it down, and I will bring it down to 10, okay, which is what I've set it for before. I'm going to run the grind just like I did before. So the machine now is going to pre-grind and pre-temp the coffee, and then I'm going to remove it again from the basket, make sure it is only 19 grams, then redo the temping. So there you go, the machine is dosed and temp. However, I'm going to put it back into our dosing cup. Okay, coffee went in there nicely. We got 19.8, so I'm just going to remove a little bit of coffee there to make it exactly 19. Okay. So we got 19.0. So placing that back into my portafilter. Again, we're going to work on the distribution of the coffee. So using the WDT is always helpful to break the clumps. Those clumps, obviously, in this scenario, they're there because coffee was pre-temped. But when you have a grinder at home, they could also be there because of static charge. And so it's always good to break that, because the water doesn't like the static charge. You'll find that if you've got static charge in your coffee, it won't extract as good for some reason. So again, impact gravity distributor, remove all the air pockets, and then we're going to go ahead, locking that in, tearing that, aiming for the same extraction, okay? So we're going to run that for 28 seconds, aiming at getting 38 grams of liquid coffee. I want to make sure the cup is in the right spot there. I nearly missed it. Oh, there you go. Coffee's running well. You can see that the coffee is coming out differently. There you go, 28 seconds. That was exactly 38 grams of liquid coffee out, which is great. So we got the same flow, or very close anyway. You can see, as I was saying, that the coffee comes out differently from the high extraction basket. That is because there is no restriction, okay? No restrictions improve the flow and improve the extraction. Another thing to mention is that the same amount of coffee in the high extraction basket, because it's a little bit wider, especially at the bottom, it's got a little bit more headroom. And the headroom allows for the shower screen to work better, for the water to be diffused better. And yeah, it's overall very important to achieve a more even extraction. Not a better extraction, but also a more even extraction, okay? So we got the two coffees here. I'm going to wait a second for these two coffees to cool down, and then I'm going to go ahead and measure the TDS, which is the total dissolved solids. Okay, the final moment here, we're going to test the coffee with a TDS reader. So what we're doing, we're testing the one that we did with the stock standard Breville. Okay, so the way we're going to do this, we're going to put some liquid into the reader, okay, and then press the button. The way the reader works is got an infrared and it measures the thickness of the liquid. In this case, it's measuring 8.51, okay? So that means out of 10, you got an 8.5 in terms of extraction. It's not quite like that, but let's keep it simple and run it like that. Then what I'm going to do now, I'm going to first of all wipe it with a wet cloth, then with a dry cloth, and I'm going to do the same with my spoon, so we've got no cross-contamination. And then we're going to test the one for the high diffusion shower skin and high extraction basket. What do we have here? It is a 9.56. So 8.5, 9.5. Let's call it out of a scale out of 10. You got 10% more coffee into your coffee. Meaning that this coffee will have more flavor, it will have more body, and it will cut through the milk 10% better or more than the one made with the stock standard. So you're actually getting more out of your coffees. Another thing to say is that the flavor is not necessarily related to the TDS. This is just a reader that measures the thickness of your liquid. But in this very scenario, I'm going to have a sip of it. Even if it's cooled down, I'm just going to have a sip of it and tell you what I think. Okay? And when I sip on the first one, there is nothing wrong with it. It's a great coffee. When I sip on the second one, what I feel and what I think and what I taste is, yes, I can tell it's the same coffee, but I just have more body. I just have more thickness. I just have a more full rounded flavor to it, which is what I really like when it comes to this sort of like single origin and light coffee that are hard to extract. When I get a little bit more out of it, it just gets roundier and just a more pleasant experience, in my opinion. So I hope you find this video helpful, and it was a pleasure, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.